Welcome everyone. Welcome back to StrangeCast, Player One vs. World's Life is Strange podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adnan. My co-host Adam is here. Adam, you here?
I'm here. I'm on a bulking plan and I don't feel good. Here we are. Yay. Okay, we're here.
Yes, we're back again. We're always back. So thank you for joining us on this one. We are available on podcast services as always. Spotify has a video version. We're also on Apple Podcasts, we're on Stitcher, Amazon Music, whatever you look on, we're there. So you can tune in that. Or obviously the video version is available on YouTube, which you might be watching from. But if you are here as well, please do leave us a subscribe, like, share, comment with your friends, turn on notifications. It helps you keep up to date with our content. We're slowly climbing to 1,000 subscribers. I would like to cross that point before the end of the year, hopefully. So if you are new here, do subscribe. And also as well, do check out Life After Strange, which recently dropped. It was on the Friday the 9th of September. We're recording the 10th of September, this episode. And that episode had none other than Katy Bentz coming back. A lot of interesting chat there. And Katy will be around these parts at some point down the line. So do not worry about that. More time with Katy spent is a good thing. But anyway, we are on StrangeCast for this one. So we actually have quite a lot of news to tackle through. This is a lot of Life is Strange news, a lot of Don't Nod news, a lot of Deck 9 news, in between kind of things. So we'll tackle things first with something that Adam spotted. So I think we go here to the Life is Strange Remastered collection. No, Life is Strange Arcadia Bay collection, that's now aptly called, for the Nintendo Switch. And Adam noticed something, which is that the Life is Strange Before Storm Remastered.
I actually just sent you the link that I found it on.
Ah, yes, thank you. In between my little monologue there, like, come on, Adam.
Sorry, dude. I figured it out. Yeah.
So, we're first piece of news is obviously going to be Life is Strange Arcadia Bay collection. Adam noticed that the Life is Strange Before Storm Remastered is only available as a DLC code. Now, we still need to get this and then confirm it, but this was through Amazon. If you go on the page, on the front cover, it says, includes Life is Strange Remastered game card, Life is Strange Before Storm Remastered download code. So, interesting that we get that part of the news. Adam, I'll let you take this away first.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting things from this. One, this is actually a sign of good news, okay? And I'll explain why. One, because, do I think that we should all get physical games of, Life is Strange and all that? Sure, we should get the physical copy. And we do have a physical copy of the Life is Strange game. But here's why it's good news, okay? The Life is Strange collection, right? It's branding on two different games from previous gen systems, which is what the Nintendo Switch was like released on. Like the hardware was on Xbox One, PS4, and then they kind of like middle ground it. But the reason why this is good news, I think, is that they understand the limits of the Nintendo Switch cartridge, and so instead of trying to pack on the best possible remaster onto the Switch, they decided to just say, we're going to put one game on the game cartridge, and that's all they can handle. But we can't put Before the Storm on, or else it will start glitching out. So we have to do it as a download code. And I think that's why this was delayed for so long, because they were trying to do the limitations of the Switch cartridge, trying to put two games on it, but they just couldn't without it just breaking. So they just said, okay, here's the middle ground. Put one on one cartridge and we'll give the download code for here. That's the only way this can work. Could they have also done this for, like the Super Mario 3D All-Star bonus, like with the three, the Galaxy, Super Mario 64, and Sunshine, like 3 games? Sure. Did Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 do it with, both games being on the same cartridge? Yes. Has collections been on the Switch before? Yes. Do I think that this was necessary? I guess it was. This had to be done for a specific reason, and I think the reason was like the Switch cartridge just couldn't handle both games being on one cartridge. That's what I think about this.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think that's personally where I see it from. Like, I'm very anti-digital content personally, because I think, like, even though the first Life is Strange was released digital only, same with Before Storm, and then eventually got retail releases. I think, like, I don't like the fact that just owning something digitally and then I can't have my actual physical copy of it, because then at that point, it, one, kind of like diminishes the trade value I have on something, and two, we've seen before when they're shutting down stores before on like the old consoles. And obviously you can make an argument, legacy consoles are legacy consoles. You will shut down the online stores of them. But when you shut them down, then you lose loads of content. It's like all the downloads you've made have gone, XYZ is gone. So I'm kind of like,
Sure.
I'm in two minds with that. But obviously with Nintendo Switch, it is very limited. Like, you know, they're still using those cards as well, for example.
Yeah.
And we're talking about like an era where like most of the big hitters, like, you know, Sony and Microsoft specifically, they're making games for Blu-ray discs, and even then they need like extra additional downloads before you even start the games because of how much like storage they need for these games. I think like even can't remember like last count, I think like Call of Duty, like Warzone or something was like 400 gigabytes or something with all the updates and stuff, and that just tears up your entire like it tears up your entire like hard drive. So I think they're gonna have to. I think somewhere in the industry there's gonna have to be a giveaway at like whether it's a new enhanced disc or something, whether it's kind of like the way they limit it file sizes because they are getting bigger and bigger. For this as well, it probably is a smarter decision having the first Life is Strange game as the physical copy and then also having the DLC code for BTS. Obviously, it annoys me because then it kind of diminishes the pre-owned value of it. Like if you go and trade this in somewhere, it's not going to get you anywhere near the same money because it's missing essentially one game from it.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so I feel like that's going to be a bit frustrating for a lot of people. But personally, my argument has always been that I'm more of a physical owner because I don't like the precedent it sets, like this kind of thing. And more so, like, you know, BTS had a physical release, so did Life is Strange 1. But then this not having it, then it gives ideas for other publishers to do, we'll kind of go down this road. And I think that's why I've always been very critical with, like, the way the industry's been going recently. Like, you know, I paid 200 and something odd pounds for the Horizon Forbidden West Collector's Edition earlier this year, and I didn't get a disc for the game. I got a steelbook.
That's right.
But no disc. I got a digital code for a PS4 and PS5 copy of Horizon, but no actual disc. And the God of War upcoming edition has no disc. As I said to you before, sets a dangerous precedent. You do this with any, you know, if they can cut out corners, like anyone, they'll do it because they'll save money on it. It's like if you buy a new car, you don't get a tire anymore free with it. If you buy a new iPhone, you don't get the plug socket anymore. You just get the USB cable. If you buy the Nintendo Switch, you just get, or Nintendo DS or whatever, you just start getting the cables. You don't get the plug sockets and stuff. It's just I don't like the idea of it. It's like you're already paying enough as it is. I'd like a physical copy of it, but then again, it's like, you know, do you really want 2 game cards or something? Maybe it's just easier access of you having just sticking in Life is Strange, the card copy, and then you also have BTS already downloaded on your Switch, so you can access it whenever. So I'm a little bit, you know, I'm 50-50 on it. I see the positives of it. I see the negatives of it. But I would have personally preferred if we had BTS as a physical copy as well.
Yeah, no question. I would rather it be on 2 cartridges, but then that ups for production. That's an extra cost because the cartridges aren't cheap, like in terms of like broad scale, right? Like adding a second cartridge, it's going to up the game more. It's already $40, so I imagine if you had to put in a second cartridge, it would have to be $50. Not have to, but you know what it is, capitalism and all that. But yeah, I imagine there's a reason for it, and I think it has to do with the limitations of the cartridge itself.
Yeah, it's got to be that. And like as I said, like let's see what happens with it. You're going to pick it up. We'll get a full breakdown of what it's like because, like as I said, the remastered collection is. Like well, you know, it sometimes feels like we're just trashing it, but I'm like, I'm not doing it for the sake of I don't like it. I think like the facial captures are unbelievable and it really does enhance the experience. But then there's so many other caveats. I'm thinking like, was this a developer's decision? Was this a publisher's decision? It's like why did you run this out as quick as you did? It's like, why don't you just keep it? There's a 10-year anniversary coming up at some point down the line. You could have like combined it then and done the actual kind of like made it a bit more spick and span. I'm very critical of my games now. I'm kind of got to the point in my life where I played video games most of my life. And in the current state of the industry right now, I'm very critical of shoddy products coming out. And I'm not saying that that's a shoddy product, but I'm saying it's like I played Horizon, there's so many bugs in it. It's great on the scale of like how big it is, but I'd rather see a smaller scale game with less bugs and kind of clean, tidy experience than anything else. It just seems to be this kind of status quo from developers. Let's get it out, or from a publisher's pro specifically. Let's get the game out, then we'll put out 600 patches afterwards and fix it. And it's like, well, what about all those people who paid for it? It's like when I paid for remastered collection, it's like I can't access the DLC codes first.
And it's only for the games industry. We only get these shoddy products because, like, if I put out music, right, and I just say, oh, like I'll just put out a patch. I can't put out a patch for my album. Like I can't do that. Same thing with actually, I can't say that anymore. You know why? I was about to say like, oh, with TV shows you can't put out a patch, but literally on HBO Max there is a glitch with the special effects on House of Dragon, and they're putting on a patch for a television show because the glitches are going out.
They've changed things in recent years, like the 13 Reasons Why, like kind of like some of the graphic scenes in that. Hate that show. Hate it.
Stranger Things, they did that.
Stranger Things, they've done it. They've done it with I think it was on Disney with Family Guy. I think like one of the jokes they made about 9/11 has been changed on that. It's like there is they are almost like seeming to take a page out of the gaming industry's book of like, let's patch things. And it's like I don't like this idea. It's like when you go and watch a film in the cinema, if you are not happy with it, you'll go back out and just argue and saying like, I want my money back. You can't patch it once it's in the cinema screen. It's in there. So it's like when it's on digital media, though, on these platforms like Netflix, Disney, or it's a video game release, there seems to be have this emphasis on let's patch things instead. Let's fix things afterwards when it comes out. But it should be released at release with a great game. It shouldn't. I'm not saying you can't have patches because you can fix things. Some bugs will happen, some issues happen, but at release, it should be at its top quality content. It's not like and I think the precedent has been set by Cyberpunk when it was released. It's like the state of that game when it came out, it should never have seen the day of light at that point. It should have like spent more time under quality assurance and getting it fixed. Like, this is why I'm just very critical of it. And it's like with Switch, there is limitations of how much they can really fix and solve issues the way that they've done on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC with all the patches. But it's like, if we just pulled up the list of the patches that they've probably done on like BTS and Life is Strange 1 Remastered, it'd probably blow our minds of like how significant it's actually been as well. So I'm just really critical of it. And it's like, that's where I'm with the Switch version. It's like back onto that kind of argument with like with the actual physical version, digital version. I would prefer two physical ones. I don't like this kind of idea of like, here's a physical code, here's a digital code from it. But then you could probably make that argument about the Ultimate Edition of True Colors that was released where we got the Life is Strange Remastered collection of it. But I think that was more of a supplement rather than actual kind of like support for it. Anything. It seemed to kind of push it a bit. There was too much content there. I didn't like the Ultimate Edition, the way it's structured.
Yeah. All I can say about this is the wonkiest Ultimate Edition add-on that's ever occurred. Like this is, like you said, like this was originally an add-on for the Ultimate Edition, and it's becoming like a whole big to-do. It's just like, this is like the wonkiest add-on that I've ever witnessed in the gaming industry.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot to be said about Remaster Collection. We've spoken about it a lot, so I think we should change gears and move into another interesting piece of news. So these are two combined ones. So going to GamesIndustry.biz first, there was this article here with Don't Nod Ventures into New Territory with Gerda and Indie Publishing. So Oskar Guilbert and Sophie Filip discussed the studio's first externally developed title and restoring the balance for developers. So this was on the 1st of September. It was Gerda, A Flaming Winter is launching today, developed by Danish studio PortaPlay. It is also the first ever third-party title published by Don't Nod. The French company, which recently overhauled its visual identity, has been experimenting with different business models in recent years, with every step seemingly paving the way for the studio to become a publisher. Don't Nod went from being a dedicated developer to self-publishing with Twin Mirror to being a third-party publisher in the span of a few years. And at Gamescom last week, CEO and founder Oskar Guilbert and CMO Sophie Filip's excitement ahead of Gerda's launch was palpable. Filip told GamesIndustry.biz, and I quote, "It's going to sound like a common thing, but we want people to connect with the game. It's an intimate story. We want people to understand what Gerda was going through. It's inspired by the stories of PortaPlay's creative director Hans von Nut's grandmother. It's World War II from a civilian point of view, a theme that resonates today more than I would ever say. More than ever, I would say, sorry. Obviously, it's not expected at the time we signed the project, but with everything that's happening right now, we really hope that it can continue to push this message, having these conversations about what happens on the civilian side in the context of a war and what everybody can do to help civilians," end quote. Don't Nod didn't put its developer's hat back in the closet, though, and contributed to Gerda's development. This hands-on approach will be at the core of its future publishing relationships as well. So Filip said, and I quote, "We were looking for partnerships where it wasn't just about us publishing the game. It's also where we would it's also where we could contribute a bit. That was one of the criteria. That was one criteria. We want to work together. It's a co-production, and we're only doing co-productions. Really having a special relationship with the developers we're working with. Gerda is relatable, definitely, and a narrative game, but it's not a game that we would have done at Don't Nod, if that makes sense. It definitely has its place in our portfolio, but it's something that's slightly different, with different gameplay and using a different art style and so on. We want to diversify as much as possible the portfolio of games while still having our pillars, and so this was fitting nicely into that vision." End quote. Guilbert adds that Don't Nod is and will continue to be very selective of the developers it decides to work with and the kind of games they want to make. And when asked what exactly the company is looking for, he adds that it's also a question of budget. Mm-hmm. He said, and I quote, as its external production, we think we should not risk as much money as if we did internally, as we'd have full control of the production. So we have to be very careful about it. And also what is really important for us is that the team we will work with already released a game, or at least it has a demo or has something which we can already play, to be sure that the team is able to deliver this game. Because as you know, in our industry, it's really hard to make games. It requires so many different types of expertise. It's really difficult. So we were very selective. And with PortaPlay, we thought they had a game with a strong narrative. It's a game with RPG aspects. And you know our success and know-how is narrative games, and also RPG with Vampyr. So together it was a good balance, and we thought it was something which would be very successful. Also, the fact it's a relatively intimate game, which triggers emotions, is something we really something we really think is valuable. Yeah. It comes from the heart of its creators, end quote. Sorry, it feels like I'm just like reading so much here. There's a lot more in this article. I think we'll kind of stop at that point because there's a lot to talk about. Also, as well, including that was obviously that Gerda has launched officially from the Don't Know press release. It's on Nintendo Switch and PC. It's available in its first week for 10% discount. Obviously, that's probably gone by the time this episode's come out anyway. But it's one of those games that is available to pick out. Adam, I'm going to take a break for a moment for my resting my voice. I'm going to give you the floor here. What did you think of them saying Filip and Oskar Guilbert?
No, it sounds like their vision is towards becoming a well-known publisher, that they want their stance on this. They want to touch the lives here. And this is like their first, they're dipping their toes into this. They don't want to put in too much budget. They want to take a big bite out of things. But at the same time, they want their first one to be like really a step forward rather than kind of a stagnant way of looking at what their company is. And I like how they're including that, like, listen, this game really does fit into our new branding. It's a way we tell stories. It's something that's different, and we're proud of it. And I hope you really enjoy it. But yeah, they're very excited about working with other people. From what I'm seeing about this article, they're very focused on moving on, because I read this article when you linked it to me, and there's even a section about it where they reminisce about their Life is Strange days, and they're just like, Life is Strange is cool, and we won't say we'll never work on it ever again, but like, listen, a lot's happened since then, and now we're doing this, And I can relate to that a little bit, but yeah, so I can understand where they're coming from with this. So I all respect to them for taking this step, taking this leap, and making sure that their first IP that they publish outside of their own studio is something worth taking the risk on. Say,
I'll come on to the Life is Strange part in a minute, because it's a good point that you brought up. I think it's very reflective of a lot of things from Don't Nod, and it's a as I said, this is a studio that was really crippled by what happened with Remember Me, and like the success it's had since then, its fiscal earnings, everything else in between it. They've noticed where there's been successes. Vampyr, for example, being very successful with, is it Focus Home? They did that with.
Yes, Focus Interactive, yeah.
With Focus Interactive being a success, Life is Strange obviously being a big success for the developer, but kind of like the ambitions to move forward. As I said, it's not going to be associated as a Life is Strange studio, and the collective rebranding of the identity, the name change, the 6 projects it has in development, all probably quite all quite different in their own kind of like elements. It's all reflective of the studio, and it's going to be a studio that's going to be trying to kind of put its arm into publishing, very similar to what Quantic Dream did at Gamescom, where publishing that little game that came out. It was kind of like, you know, when I noticed that, I was like, oh, there's a kind of ambition here also from Quantic Dream, not just to be a third-party studio making exclusive games for PlayStation, to be a studio that's making games across all platforms, but also, you know, publishing games, giving opportunities for it. It's always kind of like a good position for a developer who's had that experience. I found it very interesting, like some of the caveats that were kind of like from those exchange of the quotes, like where Philippe talked about the kind of like thing about Gerda, like, you know, it's a game that gives you different context from a different position, especially with how it's kind of like done from the civilian front line. And it's something that really does interest me. Like, I do want to pick up that game at some point and play it and see what it's like, because it's the kind of history that I love to kind of like, that I spent my entire life learning about. And kind of like, it's just, for me, it's really something that would entice me to play it. So I do want to kind of pick it up. I don't own Steam. I might try and get Steam downloaded, see if I can actually get it picked up and play it. What was also interesting in that was that they talked about how Gerda isn't a don't nod game in their kind of way that they would see it. So I think that was kind of a good point that they emphasized on that, saying that we have our own catalog games. We just don't think Gerda is the kind of game that we aesthetically fit into our kind of like portfolio of the games that we would develop. And it's very true that as well. If you saw Gerda, you saw Don't Nod's name attached to it as a publisher, you're like, oh, they're just the publishing arm of it. It's kind of good that, and that PortaPlay is the developer, because it's like you would automatically associate that's not a kind of game that Don't Nod would make. It really doesn't really fit into that criteria, except for maybe the narrative focus. So that's kind of like, that's also good in that sense. And then another one was that you're talking about the production value. It's in that Square Don't Nod does help the production of it, that they can kind of like lend their development expertise towards it, and that's good as well. I think that they've learned that from Square Enix as well, because Square Enix did develop parts of Life is Strange with them. They had all the external studios at Square Enix if they need to draw support from them. And it's like in the credits, I watched Life is Strange 2 credits a couple of days ago. It's like you see how many of the different Square Enix arms that were helping with the development of the game. So another big positive there. And also just the fact that with Oskar Guilbert as well, like it's the fact that they know their budget. They need to be very careful with this. I said this like when they were publishing Gerda. I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, this kind of seems like the first stepping stone for a game that we publish, because it's like they just can't risk throwing all money at it. It's like, what are they going to get if they throw money at a game and it flops? Like we've seen it so many times, how many studios have collapsed, how many developers have struggled from like a financial kind of pit that happens from these kind of situations, from a publisher taking too many big risks. So it's like a small scale budget, like small scale studio, ambitious kind of idea, an indie aesthetic kind of game. Why don't we just like get it out there? We'll give it a bit of support. It gives us an experience of it. We go forward from there. So I took a lot of like little, interesting parts from that. And I found the Life is Strange part, which was here. So let me quickly read this out. It was from the article. It says, issues between developers and publishers have also been recently revealed at Square Enix, among others, following the sale of its Western studios to the Embracer. Square Enix is also a publisher Don't Nod worked with Guilbert is very grateful. Guilbert is very grateful of their partnership, and Don't Nod did seem to encounter issues at the time. Guilbert said, and I quote, "When we signed with Square Enix, we really needed this contract. They helped us a lot. Of course, we were also working with Focus Interactive at the time with Vampyr, but these two publishers really helped us to go through a very difficult time. So I will not say anything negative about Square Enix. I think they have a good know-how." That's not part of the quote, yeah. They work with many different companies. Of course, the contracts maybe were a little bit old school, but what can be done now? It was a long time ago and things have probably changed. I think we did a great job together and the result is Life is Strange, end quote. Yeah, it's very interesting that. It's kind of like jumping between very interesting conversations. Like when you want someone to spit out and give their real opinion or something. And I don't think it's going to be a bashing down on like Square Enix.
No, but I love how he said like, Yeah, no, the contracts were a little bit old school,
Yeah.
But yeah, what can we do now? It is what it is.
Like, okay, I'll give Square Enix credits. It has like done some great things in the past. It's like handled, for example, the Final Fantasy remakes really well. And other like little parts, but I think like the Embracer Group deal was an example of like showing where their weaknesses have been, where they've really kind of like, what are the words? Ballsed up at times with like the managing of their Western studios. I don't think they've really handled it well.
Yes.
And it also kind of gives you an interesting perspective from the Don't Know position, where they were working with Square Enix on one side and also Focus Interactive on the other side. So they're kind of like getting two different publishing expertise and different opinions. But then it is that kind of like control that the publisher has on top of, executive decisions. So it does kind of cause that kind of like, that those kind of differences with Don't Nod. And I think like that's why basically Don't Nod walked away from its position with Life is Strange. I just don't know whether that studio will go back to it at this point.
Well, I mean, did you see the last thing here? If I can read it here.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, so excuse me. So Sophie Filip says there's no plans for Don't Nod to go back on working on Life is Strange, the IP owned by Square Enix, currently helmed by Deck 9, but doesn't say never. And then she quotes saying this: "It's not in the plans yet. But obviously we're still open in the future. Let's see how it goes. The strategy right now at Don't Nod is to create our own IPs and own them and continue to build new worlds and stories that we know our players will care for. So we're definitely working towards that." And I just like how she said, like, listen, I'm not saying we're not going to work on it, but we want to do our own thing.
I'd read that last paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely, that's definitely what you
yeah. So she then continues to say, and piggybacking on how Life is Strange shaped Don't Nod, I think definitely we saw. Sorry, my plant's in the way. Get out of here, plants. I think definitely we saw that people and players had interest in stories we were telling with Life is Strange. It was really popular because the story was really relatable. The story has a lot of meaning and was triggering conversations, something that really encompassed our editorial vision and something we are looking for in the games we are making or curating with partnerships like we have with PortaPlay. And it's just like a little plug right there. It's like, it was, we're trying to tell stories like the game from PortaPlay. And just like a little bit of a plug there. But you can tell with these interviews that they just want to move on. But like everybody's like, yeah, but Life is Strange. Life is Strange. It's like, yeah, but like
it's hard, isn't it?
PortaPlay. Yeah,
it's hard. It's when a developer studio something becomes attached to one thing, then it's difficult to break. It's like with actors when you become typecasted to something. How many actors really have great futures outside of, like, for example, Friends? Like some of them did. Some of them managed to break away from just being a Friends actor. Some of them stuck in it.
Well, I'm thinking more of like back in video games. Like I'm thinking more of like Bethesda Game Studios, and they're just trying to get people excited for Starfield, which, by the way, is coming out this year. Wait, no, did they delay it?
I think they delayed it, didn't they?
I feel like they did, but I don't think they did. I think it's coming out this November. I'm pretty sure. Oh, initial release date 2023. Yeah, they did delay it. Yes.
Yeah, they did. Because they were threatening for Sonic Frontiers. That's why I pushed back. They can't handle that. They can't handle that shit.
Yeah. Okay, they did delay. But anyways, back to the point though. Like they're trying to get people excited for Starfield, but everybody's like, but what about Elder Scrolls? What about Fallout? And they're like, can we just do something else? Yeah, but like Elder Scrolls and Fallout. No, those are great. Starfield. And then they show footage. It's like, that looks like Fallout in space. It's like, yes, it's our style. Like that's our thing. We do this thing, but now it's in space. And it's just, you can tell like these video game companies are trying to do something, because video games take years to develop. Years. And they're just like, can we just set our focus on that?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, don't do that.
Life is Strange was a phenomenal success. I just think it's hard to replicate it. So obviously in itself, like I kind of feel like it's kind of like back and forth for this kind of conversation with like Filip and Guilbert, where it's saying like, we love Life is Strange. We embrace it for what it is, how successful it was for us.
Yes.
We and these are my words, not theirs, but it's like, we see there were difficulties with the contracts that we are having with the publisher working on this game. They're not the way that we see as an intention of a publisher working with a developer. We don't like that kind of style of it. We might go back to Life is Strange, but I think maybe the mindset is also, it's kind of like a step back rather than a step forward. Maybe in the future, we might go back and make it as like a game. Maybe it's something else. It's just not part of our current future. And I feel like that's kind of like, as I said, this is a really interesting interview. If you are listening, so I'll go and read the entire thing from GamesIndustry.biz. These are some of my favorite interviews I see on their website, the ones where you kind of get into the meat of it. Because there's something else in here as well that I kind of want to bring up. So we missed out a couple of passages, but this is something really interesting. It gives you more, adding on to the Life is Strange conversation, adding on to also what it's doing as a portfolio, as a publisher, which games it's publishing, which it might not be. So in itself, here's another one, which is, in fact, Don't Nod isn't done with publishers altogether. The studio currently has 6 games in the works across its 2 teams, one in Paris, one in Montreal, obviously, formed by parts of the original Life is Strange team. Philippe tells us 5 of them will be self-published, but one will be brought to the market by Focus. When asked about why it's not self-publishing all of them, Guilbert talks of the ambition of the unannounced title. The budget of the game is really very important. I'm not going to reveal it, but it's much higher than our usual budget for the games we have fully published. It was also because we thought Vampyr was very successful. It was number 1 when it was when we released it on Steam, on Amazon. It was a really, really big success. So we really focus on selling distribution part. And also they did a good job on the marketing. So we think it was a good move. It was a good move for us. We were also at the time constructing our marketing department. Sophie arrived at the company in 2019 and had to build up a team, so it took time. So I think it was a good decision for us, on the financial part of things, but also for the marketing, distribution, support, end quote. So there's our big sample as well. 5 of them will be self-published. The one isn't. So we now have, I think, confirmation that Montreal's game is self-published at this point. I think I said to you, I think it could have been a publisher, but I think they're rolling the dice on that game. They want to keep the IP. Very much so.
Totally.
I think the expectation out of all the teams, I think, is mostly on Montreal, because I think like the name, the branding of Life is Strange will carry with it. Obviously with Michel and Luc in Montreal. So there's a big one there. Yeah. The game that obviously Focus is developing, was publishing with Don't Nod, I think is probably a Vampyr sequel, because if the way that they're saying it as well, the budget of the game is very, really important. I'm not going to reveal what it is, but it's much higher budget than usual. Usually sequels do that. They go for a higher budget and end of that. Talks again about Vampyr success. I think it's probably a Vampyr sequel, or it's a Vampyr kind of like a game in the Vampyr universe. I think that's what it's going to be. And I think it would make sense with working with Focus on that kind of game. But I think it just is a very interesting thing that we now have confirmation that 5 of the 6 games that Don't Nod is working on are going to be self-published. So we have a really kind of there's a lot now for Don't Nod, and it's like it's going to be in its fiscal earnings, in its position. Like we are going full blown in here as well. Like, and I don't think the budgets are going to be that big on these games as well. I think that this is going to be in the same vein as like the Life is Strange 1 kind of game, where it's like the budget for that Montreal game is not going to be huge. I think like when we talked about Michel saying in one of his tweets where he's like, we don't have a huge team, we're not going to have a massive AAA, open world scale kind of game. It's going to be very constrained, driven by like a narrative game, very much like the kind of games that I love, like when I played Oxenfree, when I played Life is Strange 1, 2, that kind of style of game. So it's kind of like it's going to drive sales off of being a very single player heavy driven game. So that's my kind of my perspective on it. But I just find it very interesting that they gave a lot away in this kind of thing, especially with like where as a studio, as a developer, as its position in the future. But as I said, like there's a lot of risks here, because like it's 5 games they're publishing. In itself, the games that it's published Gerda as a third-party game, that's the first one that it's done. And then the other one that we know is Twin Mirror, and Twin Mirror really didn't underperform on the sales front. So
yeah,
there's a lot to be played here. So it's an interesting thing for their future as well.
Yeah. Which if I haven't played Twin Mirror, like go and play that game. Yeah. I liked it. I liked it a lot, but no, unfortunately it did not sell too well or do commercial success. But hopefully not hopefully, I think definitely the Montreal one. If they self-publish it, I think that's what they're eyeing on. Like, it's going to be a new IP, and it's going to be their new like face of the studio. You know?
Yeah, I think we'll move on because we'll kind of come back to
Yes.
this in another news segment. But I kind of wanted to mention one more thing. I'm really hopeful, and based on purely like recent news, I'm really hopeful that Don't Nod doesn't take another stake with Tencent. Tencent already has a stake in Don't Nod, as it does. I'm very critical of Tencent. I'm so critical of it. This is my position on with Don't. I was so upset when I saw the developer partner up with Tencent. And I say that because I saw Tencent have its bigger acquisition in Ubisoft recently.
Yeah.
So I'm already again like I'm very anti Tencent in this industry. It should have no place in the industry. And it's same as these kind of like monopolizations of like Microsoft owning Activision or trying to push that deal through. It's also like, you know, the Embracer Group coming in and scooping all these IPs. It's like Nintendo, Saudi Arabia putting a stake in Nintendo. It's like Tencent putting a stake in Don't Nod. It's like, do you know, like complete opposites of your values as well, especially like Don't Nod as well. Like when they try to do those hard hitting games like Messages, and then you have like Tencent in bed with it, a Chinese corporation. It's like, you know, where Chinese corporations and the country in itself stands its position on LGBT and, you know, all these other issues, and, you know, the genocide against Muslims, against the Uyghur people. Made this a bit political, but it's kind of like I'm kind of like talking about the implications. It's like, and I make that in the sense like, look at the state of what's happened with Ukraine and Russia, and it's like you really wanted to partner up with Russia in an energy crisis. It's like we see what happens there. It's like stop buddying up to people that you think that you can trust, because this is what happens to the repercussions. To drop the political part of that, let's kind of get back onto that. That's my only other concern with the Don't Nod venture. I think it's great what they're doing. I just don't want them to have another minority stake being put in there from like someone like Tencent, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are eyeing up Don't Nod. It's like, oh, maybe we should up our stake and investment in it.
Yes,
it could appeal to it.
Yeah, and if you're still following the news, like I don't know, man, just be skeptical in this world. You know, I'm still on a Ubisoft boycott. Like, I'm not playing them. I'm not buying them until they fire Guillemot. No, I'm not buying or even like touching Ubisoft games. So whatever.
I felt the exact same way, because you see the news only a couple of days ago. So like in itself, it was 3 days ago, the Ubisoft shares plunged by 17% after Tencent took a stake in it, or a bigger stake.
Yep.
And then on top of that,
boycott's working, dog. Because like I said that, like I was gonna say, like, I've been on this boycott for about a year now. And and I told people, like, if you boycott this game, and I said this on Games and Groceries, the other podcast that I was on, or that I, you know, was the star of, I don't know, but like I said that it's going to take time until you see like a net hit with Ubisoft, and that's exactly what's happening. So they're losing money, and that's why they're really going back to Tencent, like, oh, please, we want money. But I think people are just sick of Ubisoft at this point. So whatever.
Absolutely, I'm so sick of it. Like when they're doing this Assassin's Creed one, it's like they're trying to set up like this massive Assassin's Creed line. It's like, just make one game. People want a simple Assassin's Creed game. Stop making these like ridiculously overscaled games. They want you to be they want you to be the studio that you were many years ago, like, you know, the one that will actually make you. Well, it's just, I find it funny that you write that, because like Yves Guillemot, sorry, Yves Guillemot.
Yeah,
like,
Yves Guillemot.
Yves Guillemot. There we go.
Yeah.
Yves Guillemot. Like, I just saw this yesterday. I was reading it on Games Industry, where it says like Ubisoft's trying to change its company culture. And I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
Whilst that man is the head of Ubisoft, that ain't happening. And again, like, I've been
fire Guillemot.
I'm so like against it in that kind of sense. So, and as well, I haven't bought a Ubisoft game brand new since 2015. Last year I supported that studio. I bought Watch Dogs at launch, very disappointed, and I bought Unity at launch. Was that 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Six
Unity?
ago? Eight years ago, actually.
Yeah, it was 8 years ago. That was on the launch of Xbox One. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Unity and Watch Dogs. I think they both came out in the same year, 2014. So 8 years, I've not bought a brand new Ubisoft game. Boycotted it. Yeah. Don't. If we are putting shoddy products out in the way you work as a company, not interested.
Yeah.
Not interested at all. So, right.
I was about to say we should move on before we. Yeah.
Next piece of news, I'm going to skip, Adam.
Okay.
I think we've just covered this. It was about Don't Nod aiming to get a power balance, and I just realized it's the same GamesIndustry.biz interview. I feel like we might be going too much over it, so we'll skip that, actually, and move it out. this is a bit different. It kind of, again, relates to Don't Nod, so we're sticking on that. So I'm going to PlayStation Lifestyle. It was Vampyr Studio, Don't Nod, co-developing new action RPG game.
Ooh.
So Vampyr developer Don't Nod has announced that it's co-developing a new action RPG, which will also be publishing with Italy-based Tiny Bull Studios. Tiny Bull is an independent studio, with its most notable console games being PSVR/PS4 title Blind and Omen Exitio Plague. I hope so, I got it right. Tiny Bull also has mobile games like Space Connect in its portfolio. So I'm not going to read the rest of this because the article's a bit of a mess. I'm going to go to the press release instead. So it was on the 8th of September. Don't Nod released a press release saying Don't Nod, an independent French studio that creates, develops, and publishes video games, and Tiny Bull Studio, an independent development studio, are proud to announce their collaboration. Don't Nod will publish the upcoming Tiny Bull Studio game, developed in the form of a co-production in which Don't Nod will hold the majority rights of the intellectual property. Based in Turin, Italy, Tiny Bull Studio, staffed by an experienced team of some 15 people, is currently developing an original creation in keeping with Don't Nod's creative vision and values. The new game has powerful sales potential in the buoyant action RPG segment. Don't Nod will share with Tiny Bull its know-how and experience gained from existing products, notably Vampyr, in order to support the new action RPG creation. Highly appreciated by a broad spectrum of players worldwide, the genre also resonates with the expectations of the studio's deeply engaged community. The new collaboration will be a big value generator for Don't Nod, which is bolstering its intellectual property portfolio and expanding its lineup beyond the confines of its in-house production capacity, thanks to these collaborations and its new publisher studio profile. Don't Nod CEO Oskar Guilbert said, and I quote, "We are proud to welcome Tiny Bull Studio among our partners. We were won over by a singular project developed by this talented studio, which underlines Don't Nod's commitment to supporting original creations in keeping with our mindset and values in a genre that appeals to a wide audience. We are proud to be signing our third collaboration in the space of 18 months, thereby furthering our ambitions as a publisher and bolstering our asset portfolio," end quote. And Tiny Bull Studios CEO Matteo Lana added, and I quote, "This is a great opportunity for Tiny Bull Studio. Meaningful games have always been our focus, and we are looking forward to working with such an outstanding partner on our next project," end quote.
Yes.
Right. Do you want to take it away again? I'm running out of
Yeah, go for it. I mean, once again, they are focused on meaningful stories. These are going to be story-based games, and it seems like Tiny Bull, right? I have never heard of these games, and I think this is a good opportunity for them to get into the mix of something like Don't Nod, which is a pretty well-known industry name. So not to say that anybody that's not well-known is not meaningful. I mean, like your friendly neighborhood independent music artists, they want to be known by something. But this is just a great opportunity for them to have their name be known, because now they're partnered with a person like Don't Nod. And it seems like this is a benefit for both, because Don't Nod is looking for games that are original and that fits their portfolio, and that they're building their portfolio to become a great publisher. And then Tiny Bull is looking for a studio to put them in the spotlight. So this is definitely a symbiotic relationships, and I'm very much excited. Now, I missed the part where the Vampyr dev, is it just Don't Nod who they're referencing as the Vampyr dev?
Yeah.
Don't Nod will share known game existing
Yeah, they're mentioning
products.
Don't Nod.
So it's just Don't Nod. It's not so it's not necessarily the actual people from Vampyr. It's just kind of the developers behind Don't Nod.
Yes.
That's what I was confused about. Okay. Because I was thinking of okay, I understand now. Okay, so they're just comparing oh yeah, Vampyr, did you like that? It's Don't Nod. So I guess we'll share. It's known how an experience gained from existing products. Okay, so I'm just trying to see what the connection is with Vampyr in this game is. That's all.
It's
And
probably
just like
it's probably purely on the basis that it's an action RPG game, and they've worked on it in the
Got
past
it.
as well.
Yeah, so Donut's helping them to create this. So Tiny Bowl seems to have this vision for it, and then Donut is like, hey, we can help you out with that because we made Vampyr, which is also a fantastic game. So no, it's exciting to see this kind of relationship happening. So good on them, good for Tiny Bowl, good for independent artists. So good on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the South, like, we got some interesting parts. Obviously, the fact that Donut will hold the majority of the intellectual property. I think, like, again, that's a very big sign for where Donut is as a studio. They're probably very much, could only dream about keeping the Life is Strange IP, but times were tough then. Decisions would have to be made, and they had to, have a publisher with Square Enix in there. So there's another example of why they keep building their portfolio. I think they want to be a studio which has like loads of games in their arsenals, IPs, etc. One eventually might hit a gold mine. You never know. So I think it's notable that they want to do that. Again, it's was it their third? Was it? What did it say now? More so on the fact that this is obviously action RPG, which is a big thing for Donut. Experience there, having worked with a publisher in itself with Focus and also development as well, is a big factor for them, so they can bring those expertise to Tiny Bowl. Again, putting its production in there as well, it's very similar to the kind of dynamic which Donut had with Life is Strange, where they had Square Enix external studios helping them with development. So it's good that Donut has arms where it can kind of help with production of these little projects. It doesn't have to basically like put massive cash injections into a project. So rather than like letting Tiny Bowl stay the way that it is as an independent, quite a cohesive studio, they can kind of like liaise their own kind of stuff out and be like, here's someone coming in with really great experience of Vampyr, and here's someone coming with great experience from this part of development. So it kind of gives them kind of good ways of collaborating there. And obviously, as the press release is snazzed up, they have big expectations for this game. How well it performs, I don't know. That's, again, I feel like Gerda, for example, I don't think it's going to produce massive commercial success for it, but I think that they'll just target a niche with that, and it's just a good first stepping stone and no disrespect either, but a first stepping stone into the publishing arm of the company. And again, I think it's very reflective, because it's like this kind of like press release is really helpful to have after reading the interview with Sophie Filip and Oskar Guilbert. As I said, go and read it on GamesIndustry.biz. Those are some of the most interesting articles I read online, because it gives you so much about what they're doing. It's not just, we recently rebranded it as a Don't Nod, kind of like we have a different name, we have a different logo and stuff like that. It's a very, the machine is churning in a different kind of way, and they're trying to really change that position of like the way that they're seeing themselves as a studio, as a publisher. And I think like this again just helps Don't Nod kind of position itself in the industry. It's always hard to kind of get to that position of like those kind of developers who can be publishers and also make their own games. And I think like the only thing that my only kind of reservation with Don't Nod is that not to sign too many of these deals. I think this is like I think they said it's like their third or something in the space of like 18 months or something. So it's not it's their third collaboration in 18 months. That's what I was looking for.
Little trivia question for you. What was really the detriment to Telltale Games? Remember, so part of their press release for when they closed down, they pretty much said that they bit off more than they can chew. Yeah. And like they signed way too many IPs that they couldn't handle it. They had to like really ramp up development, and then they just kind of ran out of money. And before they could release the Stranger Things game that they were going to release, they had to shut down because they pretty much just ran out of money because they took on way too many projects.
Because at that time, when you were mentioning it, so it was Netflix's Stranger Thing. They had a relationship with that. They were producing The Walking Dead season 4. Was that with Skybound at that time as well?
That was with Skybound, and they closed down during production.
Yeah, so that was that. I think it was 2 episodes in, they closed down at that point, so that put that in jeopardy. They had just made Game of Thrones, which also hinted at the fact that they wanted to make another season after it. They had made Batman, which obviously seemed like another one where they seemed to kind of want to go down that road again.
So glitchy, dude.
Mate. Yeah, it was
oh,
so...
boy.
Yeah.
It was not a good state of the game. Yeah.
The Wolf Among Us as well was like, again, in the kind of vein of a sequel. But you could tell at that time, though, like you said, like they had all these deals going on. And then one of the worst and most boring ones I played is Minecraft. It was like 8 episodes.
Oh, The
That was
dungeon one?
Yeah, it was one season,
Yes.
which was 8 episodes, and then the next one was like 5. I was like, why is this a Telltale game? It's like so boring.
Yeah. Well, that's where Oxenfree came to play. Like, that's where Night School Studios was. They're just like, we can't stand this ridiculous kind of business model. So that they branched off, made Night School Studios, and now we got Oxenfree. So,
which is a big win as well, having Oxenfree in the market. It's a good kind of game. Yeah, I think you're right bringing that up. Like, that's the Telltale demises. I've seen it for a long time. The studio seems to have learned its lesson, which it needed to learn that lesson as well, because it's like a reality call of like, you can't take on too many projects. You take too many on, and then what's the expectation if something fails or you start running the company into like the books don't start balancing? Like, you need to kind of focus on certain projects and then kind of like expand with it. And like, this is the thing we don't know. It's like, a lot of these are independent games anyway, so it's like they can take the risk factor of it. Maybe there's a success in it, maybe not. I think in itself, it'll be very reflective in its fiscal earnings next year and the year after, where it says when we see those games come out, the 5 that it's publishing itself, the internal games, then we'll start seeing some very interesting correlations about where Don't Nod is. Because like, as I said, the flag indicators for me at the minute with Don't Nod are, you had a very successful run with obviously Vampyr from Focus, and you've continued a collaboration on with Focus, which will obviously help the studio continue making hopefully successful kind of games and commercial success in there. Then also on top of that, you know, you had Life is Strange success there as well, but now there's kind of like a drawing line with that, and we're not going to have necessarily the same revenue coming in from a Life is Strange game. Like, you know, you're not developing one with the publisher. And then the other one is, again, like the big one was the red flag for me was Twin Mirror. It didn't sell as well as it wanted to. So it's like, you kind of have to, you know, reassess what goes forward at this point. So it's like, there's a big, the wheels are in motion for Don't Nod. It's like just keeping itself in the line that it needs to be in. And like, as I said before, my own kind of personal things, I would not, you know, I can't imagine what the expectations are on the Montreal game. I really can't imagine that. Like, I don't think they've ever said anything, but the expectations are the biggest by far for me on that game. Like, them making that game, I know in my heart of hearts, like they don't know. It's like, looking at that, it's like, that has to be the banger. That has to be a banger, like Life is Strange.
Yeah, I know.
And like, I have no doubting of their abilities, Luke Michel, but like, I would not want to be in their shoes, because it's like, when you chart into uncharted territory with a new IP, there's no guarantee of like making Life is Strange and then having a successful game after it. Like, and as I said this before with previous examples, very few opportunities do a developer get a chance to make a new IP fresh off the bat after a huge success. Like, look what happened with Guerrilla Games. They made Killzone games for so many years, and then they eventually got handed a good chance with Horizon. They made a mega blockbuster hit for Sony. So it's like, they got the opportunity, they took it, and it worked out for them, but it could not have happened that same way. Again, look at other studios. Ben's studio, they had made Days Gone. I thought Days Gone was a good game. I enjoyed it, but like, the sequel will never see the day of light now, which is a shame as well, because they just didn't see the commercial value of it. Although they're making a movie, which is really weird. Again, weird for me. Really weird. But maybe they're hoping the movie drums up return for a sequel, whatever. Anyway, I think it's interesting, though, nonetheless, from Don't Know to announce this partnership. And again, I think this will be... I think it'll be all right, though. I think because Gerda's come out now, that part of that partnership's done, so we can move on to, for example, this one. It'll kind of like move their attention towards it.
Yeah. I have nothing more to say about it. Just like, good for them. Yeah. I don't know. Let's hope for the best.
Okay. So let's move into one more piece of news, which is from a independent developer. So this is from Vodeo Games. They made Beastbreaker. So they put out on the 7th of September a statement on their Twitter account, which is, we have some sad news to share. There will be no new Vodeo Games. The story is unfortunately a familiar one for small studios. Despite a year of avid efforts, we've been unable to secure funding for our next project from publishers and investors. As such, we've run out of funds and aren't able to keep the incredible team together. And there is simply no Vodeo without our incredible team. Our final efforts are going toward a Steam release for Beastbreaker. We hope that it will bring our creation to many new players and continue to support our team even as we all go our separate ways. So I bring this up because Chris Floyd worked here. Chris Floyd was the Before the Storm co-director. He joined Vodeo Games after leaving Deck 9. And it's really a big shame, like, you know, that this happened, because like this is why Chris Floyd left. Chris Floyd like did a massive Twitter thread,
which I can't believe was a year ago.
Yeah,
like that's
mad,
the crazy part. Is just like that was a year ago. Holy cow!
Yeah, it was mad because he did a massive Twitter thread explaining that why he left Deck Nine. He didn't feel like the direction of the studio was going the way that he wanted to. He was very more concise and like working at, for example, as Vodeo Games kind of studio. And, you know, I wish Chris the best of luck with the future. I hope he gets into another job. I'm sure he'll get into another job. He has so much experience, and obviously, you know, his work on BTS is very much admired for me. And as I said, wishing the best of luck for that. But I think it's just another sign of Vodeo Games, like an example of like just the difficulties of the industry. And it's like the new indie for me seems to be like kind of like, you kind of mentioned it to me a couple episodes where it's like, you know, you have the Jade Raymonds, you have the Hideo Kojimas, you have all these kind of people who are influential big industry figures who are running their own studios as third parties, essentially working as an independent developer at the same time. But they can basically go up to a Sony and be like, we need money, we have this project, let me make Death Stranding. Here's money, let me make a new Assassin's Creed-esque game like Jade Raymond's kind of position. And it's like they have those kind of power. They have the power, the status, and everything else that work with it. But unfortunately, that doesn't work for a Vodeo Games though. And like, whilst we've had that kind of like we've had a great year of a great almost decade plus of like loads of independent games. Gone Home was independent, or am I wrong?
Yeah, it was.
Gone Home, Limbo, Papers, Please. You had like loads of great independent games that came out. Like Fez, like, you know, these kind of games that came out and there were successes, but it's so hard to work as an independent developer to make games and then have like funding coming around. Like, as I said, like it's just hard to draw the appeal in for people. So I think like independent games, the indie scene is really going to get hit in the next couple of years or so with like these kind of like positions. And it's such a sad news as well, and especially for someone like me to see someone like Chris Floyd, like not to be able to do what he wanted to do, was basically move to a smaller studio, a more concentrated studio, an independent studio, and kind of like work towards that rather than almost like, you know, how Deck Nine's positioned itself and changed, and almost, you know, it's kind of hard to go in a different route to kind of like keep itself in a power play position.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate to see. And like you said, with independent, like it's definitely a double-edged sword, and unfortunately they got the wrong end of that sword. So, double-edged being like, on the one side, you have total control over your own destiny. It's great.
Yeah.
On the other side, you can just easily fall off and lose funding within seconds. And unfortunately, that's how it went. But hopefully Chris Floyd goes on to a much better studio. He put it on his Twitter account. He has 23 years of game design experience. So that is 23 years more than I have. So
yes,
hopefully he gets into, you know,
I have no doubt. Very talented man. And as I said, BTS, like the work that he did with Web on BTS is like, it'll be hopefully I'm hoping it looked back on more better with people who are critical of BTS or who don't like it. I think like you probably have more appreciation for it. So, you know, best of luck to everyone at that studio, and best of luck obviously to Chris Floyd. I just want to give him a shout out there.
Yeah, if you haven't bought Beastbreaker yet on Switch, I mean, you can still support the team. You can still buy Beastbreaker, still support people like Chris Floyd. It's still on sale. They put that onto their statement that any sales that go in will be provided to the team. So it's still available on Switch and soon to be on Steam.
Yeah, so some positive caveats there, so we'll give it that, and we'll kind of move on. Final news piece / also kind of like just a quick plug. Katy Bentz is nominated for Charity Streamer of the Year and Twitch Streamer of the Year at the GamesHERs. We didn't get to talk about this in Life After Strange. I'm hoping that she will appear on StrangeCast later this month. We're trying to arrange that, so there is a teaser of one of our new upcoming episodes. But yeah, voting is open on their website. Go and check it out. I put it on this Life After Strange episode, like in the links and stuff. Like, go and vote for her. She deserves every bit of it. Always does. And big friend of our show. And hopefully she'll be on the show. We'll definitely kind of talk to her a bit more about it as well, because I think this is big. Obviously, it's a big part of her life and all that. So I just wanted to give that quick shout out. So Adam, we'll move on from our news segment. A lot of news segment, almost an hour's worth. Wow. So we're moving on to our main topic. So we actually, as many of you might have seen if you do follow us on Twitter and stuff, Adam has been playing Life is Strange 2. It's part of the plan of like, we are going to move away from True Colors in the next couple of weeks. I think like we've focused a lot on, BTS, True Colors, nothing wrong with that. But I think we've kind of alienated a big part of obviously Life is Strange 1, 2. I kind of want to go back and see those kind of games, even Captain Spirit a bit more as well. I kind of want to explore them a bit more and talk about them. But Adam has replayed it, and obviously I think that's one of the big episodes I've teased for a long time. Like, has Adam's opinion changed? Adam's not going to talk about it right now because we pushed it to the sideline because only fittingly, obviously, we're recording on Saturday the 10th of September. 9th of September, we dropped the Life After Strange episode with Katy. But also the 10th of September is 1 year to the date that Life is Strange True Colors was released. So it came out here after being delayed initially. Remember as well, it was delayed. We got it pushed back here, but it came out in this month as well. So I kind of wanted to make that the topic of kind of like 1 year anniversary. Let's talk about True Colors. My kind of position first, Adam, is just that I'm planning to play True Colors this weekend because I want to go back and replay it, see how my opinions have changed on it, if they have changed, if I don't, how I feel towards it. I always find it a bit weird as well, like going back to play Life is Strange games. When I speak to more of the actors, it feels quite strange. Just like, like watching the performances. It just feels so strange. Like when I went back and played Remastered Collection, and I saw Hannah Tell, I saw having spoken to Day, Hannah, Nick Schreiner, Joe Ockman, any of the Life is Strange 1 actors. I'm thinking this feels like a bit strange. I can hear their voice. And same with when I was watching True Colors, some of the cutscenes I was getting ready for the Katy interview, just seeing Alex Chen talk, all I can see is Eric Mori. It's like there's something. It's just, I don't know. It's just like I feel like you shatter the what's it called, the wall that you have there once you meet your kind of people that you've really like spent so much time in the series.
Yeah, it kind of ruins the illusion of it. I mean, because when I worked with Kylie Brown to make The Essence of Life, like when she was reading her parts, I was like, man, Rachel Amber. Like I was just like, that's all I kept thinking is like Rachel Amber, but really cool people. But it is weird because like I've been on some of the episodes where we had these actors on, these thespians, and it gives a different dynamic to the whole game because now you kind of spoken with them, you made some friendships with them, so it kind of puts it into perspective of like even now I'll even say this, like now that me and Luke have had some interactions on Twitter, when I was like rolling credits on Life is Strange 2, like, and I saw Luke's name, I was like, hey, it's Luke. Yeah. We talked twice. But definitely gives a perspective. And I think it just puts a different context to how you play it too. So, and I think that we're just talking about us, like anybody that's listening is like, man, I would like to talk to Alex Chen. I would like to talk to these people. It's like, well, I don't know, like, do a better Life is Strange episode than we are. I don't know. Get in the competition.
Yeah, there's open market. You can like definitely go and like try and do stuff. That's why this channel started. Like it was, I had a fortune enough to have Anna Tell as a someone long associate that I'd known for a long time. It helped kind of like obviously I had certain people I'd spoken to and kind of got like conversations going. Obviously with Erica, I had a lot of help from Webb, kind of like putting me in contact. I was forever grateful for that he actually did that. And obviously Erica Mori's like, as I said, one of the coolest people I've ever met. But like playing Life is Strange True Colors, it's quite interesting now. Think about it, it's almost been a year since then. And in that, obviously we had the remaster collections released. But just think about like True Colors, like I need to go back and play because like Katy was convinced, like she said, like obviously it'll come across as really biased in my interview with you, like that I think True Colors is the best because of what we could do with the motion capture. And for me, it's like there is an argument for it as well. Like it could be the best entry. Like I see so many people resonate with it, and I did enjoy it to an extent. It's just like the more I played True Colors, this is my feeling with it. The more I played it, it was just kind of like I was like biting my lip a little bit. I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I know what's going to happen. It's too Life is Strange 1 for me at this point. I was happy after initially playing Life is Strange 2, going to the first episode, thinking, oh, this is really quite different. But I was like, by the time they had already like released Life is Strange 2, I was like, I'm all for this. I'm like, I'm ready for a new journey. Like we're going to go somewhere different. We've had BTS, we've had Life is Strange 1. They were kind of like almost like a combined package of like Max and Chloe that we've seen there. So like, let's go for a new story. Let's see what happens differently. And they won over my heart and mind, like Luke, Michelle, Raoul, and Don't Know. I really enjoyed what they were doing. So this was kind of like a safe territory that they went back to. It's almost, as I say, the Force Awakens of Life is Strange. It's like going J.J. Abrams coming in. It's like, let's go kind of like play some of the strokes that were A New Hope, play some of the kind of same rhythms. Like, let's bring a female character who's a bit awkward and a bit shy and all this kind of thing. Very similar to Max. Let's have obviously the what's his name now? Jed. I was going to say Jedison.
Yes.
The Jed kind
Jedison.
of like, yeah. Whenever you said that, the first time you said it to me, it stuck with me. The Jed Jefferson vibes have always been there. It's kind of like meaningful, close relationship with Han's character, Gabe, and Alex, you know, with Erica Mori. It's like kind of like there's that kind of vibe of like almost like Max and Chloe there. There was a lot of similarities. I was just a little bit hopeful that throw me left curve, throw me something else a bit different, throw me something that's kind of like that's like a bit more kind of like out there. And I think like in itself, I'll keep that for Life is Strange 2 conversation. I think like, because I really enjoyed the fact that with Life is Strange 2, you were traveling different places, you were seeing different things. It wasn't just a concentrated town. So you're having more interaction with different people. So I think with True Colors, there's like 12, 15 cast members or something, like the main characters. I think maybe that's a bit too much, maybe like 12 or something, 10. And it's like they're the main characters you interact with. So there's no like in the third episode or third chapter, we don't see someone come in. It's like, hey, you know, this is a new character who's come to the town and visited and kind of like appeared. Maybe there's like a bit of a dark Typhon-esque character, you know, that happens. Like, obviously you watched Lost, haven't you? You know, do you have the kind of the smoke monster? That's what I wanted. Yes. I wanted someone in that kind of vein where it's like, what's this creepy person doing there, like just standing in the distance or something? Like, I want something that adds a bit more mystique. That could have been a Typhon figure, you know, rewriting the history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt very divided after True Colors the first time I played it, and I think I was kind of like torn on it at first because like you were really bad. You were like, I love True Colors, and I was like, nah.
Oh yeah.
Go back and watch that episode. I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm sitting here talking to this chat, and I'm saying completely different. But then you changed your tune a little bit to an extent, and I still think you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's still up there for me. It's just that as a game, I think it like falls down a little bit. I think there's some choices that don't really actually matter in a game. I don't think it really does do you justice, and especially now I'm playing more choice-based games. I don't know. I just felt like I was out of the loop with a lot of things. More especially, and I think this is a very unfair comparison. Before I even say it, so like, don't say like, oh, why are you comparing the two? It's just more of like, I'm starting to see this versus that. Like, I have just played As Dusk Falls, and the choices of As Dusk Falls is just absolutely insane. It plays like a Quantic Dream game. It plays exactly like Detroit Become Human. And then I researched the director of As Dusk Falls is formerly Quantic Dream. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. But that's what I mean, though. Is that like I'm playing these kinds of games where there's a lot of choice behind it. And I don't know, I didn't feel like I had that choice in True Colors. I don't feel like that game really had branching paths. I think there was just kind of like I think there was just some like divisions in the road. That's all it was. So it's kind of like reflecting back on it, and I still stand by it that I think True Colors gave me a good vibe. But
before
was
you continue,
you
continue, can I interject? Because I don't think you're wrong about saying the thing about Detroit and the game. I think that that's the precedent that's been set. Because someone said it.
No, the unfair comparison of like comparing As Dusk Falls to Life is Strange True Colors.
I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it's unfair with comparing Detroit to, because I think like that was someone you mentioned in one of the previous StrangeCast comments. They were talking about like, you know, with BTS they enjoyed like they were kind of like. They weren't completely in favor of BTS, but they liked parts of it. And then they mentioned something which was about Detroit. And apologies if I haven't got your name here, but like, you know, I did interact with that person on YouTube because I thought his comment was really interesting, or her comment interesting. I thought it was very, it gave me a very interesting perspective because it's like, you're right about that. Like the way I played Detroit and that opening scene with the hostage interrogation, which they did it like as a trailer in itself. And then when you actually play it, I'm like, this is great. Yeah. Like in itself, Quantic Dream got a lot of. Quantic Dream has like a very divisive reputation on some of its games, especially with like Beyond Two Souls. I really like Beyond Two Souls. I think it's underrated. Personally, I think it got taken on a lot of people, but I think people were expecting a Heavy Rain-esque game with Beyond Two Souls, and it wasn't that. And instead, you get more of a Heavy Rain-esque super dosed game with Detroit is like every branching pathway. Like you play that game, I played it so much when I was getting the platinum. It's like there's so many different things that kept changing, and it's like even with the hostage thing, you can set yourself up so differently. And I think that was only 2018 Detroit, and True Colors is 2021. So it's like, yeah, you can be like very in the old school-esque Life is Strange kind of way, but they were trying to move the series forward. But I think you're gonna have to move it that forward. You're gonna have to really like take choice and consequences. Nothing worse in a video game than illusion of choice.
Yes.
And unfortunately, some games will have to do that, but it's just boring. It's like, this is what happened with Telltale. There was too much illusion of choice. Very few choices that really made a decision. It's like, you need the choices where you play them and you put the controller down and you think, oh, like, we are at a crossroads here. And that's like what happened with the first Life is Strange. That happens with other games as well. That some of the older Telltale games, it was like, what do you do here? It's like, what's going to happen? It's like, we're going to change the complete direction of it. So that's just my take to put into what you were saying, but continue.
Yeah, no, and I will say this, a much more fair comparison. I won't say anything more about this, but I felt like I had more agency of choice in Life is Strange 2 than I did in True Colors. Like, I definitely did feel like I had a lot more choice and consequence in Life is Strange 2 versus Before the Storm. I mean, True Colors. Now, and I stand by this all, like, and I told you this before we started recording the show. I think Deck 9 is very well versed in setting up a vibe, setting up something that you're going to emotionally connect with, rather than something that's going to like make you uncomfortable, right? And I think there's a fine line difference there. I mean, me and you have different tastes in that. Like, I go more towards like, how does it make me vibe? How does it make me feel? How does it kind of like connect to me emotionally, versus like, you're a more logical person than I am. You're British. You drink your spot of tea. Do you drink tea, Adnan?
I hate tea.
What? Wait. What about crumpets? Do you like crumpets?
Crumpets?
Yeah, crumpets. Do you like crumpets?
Indifferent. Don't really eat them.
Oh, stop it. Fish and chips. What is your take on that?
Don't really like the battered fish. Hate battered food.
God.
I like chips.
Are you actually like, do you actually just like pretend to have a British accent and you're actually like located in Arizona? Is this like a lie?
I'm pretty British. Do you want to tell you like I'm an undiagnosed autistic? It does help with the actual like food part of it, because I only eat certain food. Like, I despise the texture of some of those. Oh god.
Jeez. You can't just like throw out that card as like, oh no, like I can't because, you know, like this diagnosis. It's like, stop it.
I'm more
then again, I don't really.
Far.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
More by far.
I can't really say that I agree with a lot of American traditions. So, you know, hats off to you. But at least you say cheers before you say thanks. But anyways, back to my point though, is that I think you're a lot more logical, and I think that's why you connect more to games that like have a more grounded basis that makes you think, right? Whereas I connect with games that give me an emotional connection. And I think that's what True Colors did for me. It gave me a lot more to think about emotionally rather than think about intellectually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, like, I think my taste is better than yours because, like, you think The Last Jedi is good, and that's a terrible.
I never said it was good. I said I'll defend it to the rest of my days.
And defending is thinking is good. It's a god. So, like, no, I think you're right about that. I think like Life is Strange 1 was very stimulating for me. I really enjoyed that. And off podcast, you gave me a very good, interesting perspective of the Deck 9 vibing position versus the Don't Nod kind of like, we're going head on into this kind of position of like, we're tackling the subject. So I pretty much agree with like, I'm very obviously aware that I'm in a fictional universe, but there does need to be grounded elements of it. Like, so for example, with like Life is Strange 1, you have the Rachel Amber disappearance, you have all this happening in between it. Then obviously we have the fictional side of it, the fact that this girl can rewind time and like we're tapping into X, Y, Z and ABC, but we have like interesting theories about how we're playing with chaos theory, how we're putting this in there. And I like those kind of like when we explore something a bit more deeper in that sense. And the same with Life is Strange 2. Again, like I've said, I think we'll come into this at the episode later, but when we do yours, we talk about like, you know, that kind of like uncomfortable awkwardness of like Sean being told that she has to sing to these two racists who like confront him. It's like, yeah, it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Like, why are we not talking about this kind of stuff? I want video games to be a bit more serious. Like sometimes it's like, it is just the vibing factor of like, oh, we're gonna be like, we're gonna be cool and we're gonna tackle this subject and we're gonna be like quirky about it. But it's like, no, like be serious about it. I've always said this with, go away from Life is Strange 2 in a minute, but I've said this with like my reviews that I did for that back in the day when I was reviewing it, and the perspectives were very, very divided on reviewers' perspectives of, was Life is Strange 2 being too political, especially with like the wall, the Trump references, everything else like that. I was more lenient towards Luke and Michelle about it, and Raul, where I was like more in the sense that, yeah, at least you went and said it. It's like if you were tiptoeing around it, I'd be more kind of like, well, stop tiptoeing around it. Just like get it to the point and be upfront with it, what you started suggesting. That's what they were like. So I was like, I'm more than happy with you speaking your mind as a developer, the way that you see the world and how you want to tackle these kind of things. So fair enough. So I think like that's the thing with True Colors. It was like there was like the mystique had been set up at first. It was like, oh, Typhon kind of cover up. Oh, this is happening. Gabe's gonna die. I think they should have kept that a secret. I think you could have kept that a secret. Personally speaking, I think there's an argument where it's like maybe not, but I think you could have easily have made that a secret at that point in the game. It didn't need to be sold on that. I think the sudden impact would have been a bit more felt as well at that point. Because you could have just made the argument about the Typhon cover up and also Alex, and you could have just said there's a untold tragedy that happens to her or whatever. I just think personally that's why I saw it. But it did set it as well. It was really nice. It was kind of like very lightly lit town. It's nice that they went to Haven Springs. Deck Nine was drawing inspiration from Colorado, but it was just left a bit wanting because it's like when you felt the beats, and this is where it's different for me and you. We played Life is Strange 1, we played Life is Strange 2, we played before. So if this is your entry point to the series, you might be like, oh, this is great. But by the time we'd already met Jed, I was like, well, he's the bad guy. And I'm not one of those smart ass people. I just saw it because it was all the beats were hitting Life is Strange 1 at that point. And I'm like, by the time I get to meet Jed, I'm like, you're bad, aren't you? I can just sense, I can smell it on you. Like I can see it from miles away. So it was like there was just issues with that. And I think like as I've learned about this, and like also the development of this game just kept changing so much. It was like there was just like different things that were happening with characters, different positions in stories. I just think, and I'm
lack of dance scenes.
Yeah, like as you said, like that entire like thing, like Erica said, like that entire dance segment in like the 4th chapter would have been insane to see that. That would have been so freaking cool if they'd done that. But in itself, we had some great moments. Obviously, the Reginald and Alex dance was a beautiful moment for me in the game. But one of the things that really was the thing that really bothered me with True Colors was the fact that there was a freeway dynamic and it didn't work. I don't think Ryan, Steph, and Alex works as a dynamic. I think free's a crowd at that point. That's how I see it, and I think like that's why it didn't work. Because in itself, why it works well for Life is Strange 1 is that Rachel Amber's never in the room, so you can do a freeway dynamic. When you have like the two focuses on there, and in itself, look at what happens. You go to the BTS, you interchange, then you have obviously we have a prequel, but we have Rachel Amber and Chloe in there, and Max is the third kind of character that's kind of being talked about in between it. I think it just didn't work because I felt when I was playing it, and I don't know about you, every decision I felt like was kind of like making me gravitate towards Steph. But then there's always this kind of like secondary option of, oh, Ryan's here. And I'm a bit like, I'm like, and to contrast that again, so let's take Life is Strange 2, the campsite. Finn and Cassidy are your love interests, and that works better for me because I feel like both of them are so essentially integral to the third episode's story that you can either go down one or two of the options of the love interest there. But this one feels like when I'm standing there, I'm like looking at Ryan and Steph. I'm like, Steph, it just seems to be the logical choice. It's like, why couldn't we just made Steph the love interest? It's either you go down the route of like just being Steph's love interest, or you can be just a platonic relationship between the two of them, and just keep it at that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when I said like I felt like I had more agency of choice. In Life is Strange 2, whereas like everything else was just kind of like, I don't know, a setup to a different path rather than kind of like this is an important choice that you have to make in terms of your own life decisions. This just became like a choose your adventure. Which one are you going to go to? Which one are you going to kiss on the lips, or which one are you going to kiss on the cheek? It's just kind of like, I don't know. It just I don't know. Like, and that's the thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have a game like that, but I think it just became disappointing because it was the Life is Strange name on top of it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of expectations behind it because of Life is Strange 1 and Life is Strange 2. You had these two kind of games and Captain Spirit, whereas Deck 9 only had one game before the storm, and it was a 3-episode arc. And so there's just a lot of expectation to be like, it needs to have a lot of agency of choice. It needs to have serious dynamics and real world issues.
Yeah.
And it just didn't fit that. And I appreciate it for what it was, but I think because of that expectation, it just kind of, it was divisive in that sort of way. But, and that's unfortunately the case.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be a negative Nancy about everything. It's like, you know, some of the positives were there. Obviously, the performance directing by Webb was unbelievable. Turned the franchise into a different position. It has really made it to be something else.
Erica Mori is, you know, a godsend.
Yeah, she's just an incredible actress who stepped up in her first major role for that and really knocked out of the ballpark and should have been winning awards left, right, and center. But that's what the interest was. But like, you know, they were great. The actors were great. Katie obviously was great. Had a ball of a time coming back and having an opportunity to kind of really flesh out a character that she had embodied. You know, you had all the other actors in there that were great as well. Great performances all around. Story, some of the beats and the moments were really great. As I said, the Reginald kind of like dance scene with Alex. Oh my God, I felt like that's hidden as well. And some people might not even have seen the first playthrough. I think that's such a beautiful kind of moment in there. I love like the kind of the BTS references as well, like during that moment where she's like, you know, who's playing on stage? It's like, you know, come on guys. And it cuts to Alex, very similar to the Tempest shot of Chloe. I like that there was a signature style from Deck 9 that had been kept. Obviously LARP was fun. I thought that was a really kind of great evolution of D&D, great segment in the entire thing. Great characters as well. I love some of them. Reginald was great. Diane was great. Riley, I wish we would have seen Riley more. I love Riley.
I know.
Great character that as well. You know, I wish we would have seen more of Riley. So, as I said, like, I'm not always a negative Nancy about everything. I think there was a really great positives with Life is Strange True Colors, and especially some of the scenes as well. Like, I love some of the scenes where Alex is on top of the roof with Gabe talking in those chairs. It gives me such vibes of Karen and Sean in the second Life is Strange. Those are some of the best scenes that have been ever written in a Life is Strange game, and you can don't at me in the comments because I love those scenes of like when Karen just comes out and has a cigarette with Sean and she's like sitting there talking. Like fucking hell, like Karen is such a great character in that game. Like she comes in the fourth episode, absolutely storms it. And fully enough, obviously, we move forward, and what a Karen means now is so different from 2018. But that Karen is so great. And it's like so interesting to see it and the complex conversation she has with Sean and like the kind of deeper meanings of things and everything else with it. That kind of like torn feeling about being a mother, but also not being a mother, kind of like understanding Sean's like feeling towards her and then kind of like feeling that she wants to be her own kind of person, all that kind of vibe. And you see that kind of build a bit more with Alex and Gabe. I wish they would have done that a bit more. I still feel there's more Gabe Chen that could have been put into that story. Always like a kind of like a lingering ghost that he's always there with Alex kind of giving, you know, you're basically making up for lost time with this kind of like, with that interaction. So it was all great in that. And I just think like, as I said, I think there's just certain things that I think like things change in development. Not every game's perfect, but I wish they would have just started off very early and be like, we're going to go down this direction. We're going to go down this direction and we're just going to go with it. Cause I feel like that's the kind of my other kind of issues that I had with it. Cause it's like, I said this to Kate in the Life After Strange episode. It's like, I think personally they could have got rid of Alex and put you on the front cover as Steph. They're just there's this feeling with Steph. Steph's placement in the story just feels so strange to me. It's like sometimes it's like, should we have made her the main character? Should we not have made her the main character? She's a third character. Is she one of the secondary characters? Do you like? I'm like bouncing here with my words because it's like all this, and then next minute you have a Wavelengths DLC that's based around Steph. Obviously, there's a lot to do with Steph at that point. You can be like, this is
now
what happens.
Now there's a book going to be about Steph.
Exactly, like the book is now. It's like there's so much emphasis on Steph. Whether you like Steph or not, different kind of like different kind of like your views are different on that, but or your you know, how you feel about it is different. But there's like so much emphasis on Steph. It's like, hang on a minute. It's like I was very much open to the fact that I said to Kate, it's like you could have been the main character in this game, and that's not to take away from Erica Mori. Obviously, I'm so grateful we got Erica Mori, so grateful we got Alex Chen, but how can it be that different? Obviously, as I said, Wavelengths has a position where it could have happened there. It gives you time with Steph and that, but then it's also the argument. It's like, why don't we do on Alex before she came to Haven Springs and have a bit more exploration on that? But instead you make it back Steph. It's like, and I think there was a missed opportunity. They could have done a season pass there with 5 separate chapter DLCs, and it's all about different characters. Gabe, time in Haven Springs before Alex comes. You kind of get a bit more an understanding of why he's there. Maybe a chapter on Alex, her time in the, where she was before Haven Springs, kind of like a bit more exploration of her past. Obviously, wavelengths as we got anyway. You could have had one on Jed and also his past and how he became all the stuff that happened in the mining stuff. And the fifth one, you could have had different characters. You could have Reginald, a past Reginald. You could have had a Riley story arc. You could have something else. I think there's an option there of 5 like different characters you could have focused on. But it's just with Steph, it's just like I kind of sit there sometimes thinking like she should have had a bigger part to play in the story, and she has a huge part in this part to play in the story. But it's like sometimes I'm like, and it just feels like with True Colors, it feels like development constantly changed with certain things. It's like there was just certain kind of like back and forth balancing that I was kind of like a little bit torn on personally.
Yeah. No, and I think there's something to say about just simplistic writing in terms of character arcs. And I already mentioned it 4 times in this episode, and I'm sorry, but not sorry. But when I wrote The Essence of Life, could I have emphasized more on the story between Neoma and Elias? Sure. Could I have had could I make another album where I explain their stories more? Sure. But I tried to make it more of their stories are a metaphor for emotions that 2 couples can go on to. Doesn't mean just a heterosexual relationship. It could be other genders. It could be a different dynamic. Like it could be a friendship that you have. I want to focus on those characters to be written as a metaphor for an emotion that human beings feel. And there's simplistic writing in that, where it's not more of the character arcs. It's not about their past. It's more about what does it make you feel at the time. But I think the downfall of it all can be just there's too many characters, and I think you're just trying to set up a story with different paths and different motives and who did what. It becomes a whodunit. So I don't think it really knew what it meant to be. It's just kind of like, well, I think it knew what it meant to be, but I think it just kind of bit off more than it can chew while also trying to please Life is Strange fans. And I think it just kind of fell to a different way path. Yeah,
so, you're right. Because like, I think you mentioned it before about the album, where you said that it could have been 3 characters instead of the 2.
Exactly.
And I was like, I just sat there thinking, I was like, thank God you actually made the right decision of getting rid of the 3rd character, because the 3 character arc, it's hard to navigate, because like as I said with even with the Life is Strange comics, I understand when people say to me, oh, it's like the shoehorn Rachel in there, oh, this is like Square Enix and blah blah. I get that, I do, because I understand it. Sometimes it does feel like that, because it sometimes does feel like it's there's a 3rd wheel in there essentially. But at the same time, I think personally, my experience from reading it, Vicelli does a really good job managing, because as I said to you, as a fan of the series, when I see some of the scenes of Max and Rachel interacting, I'm like, this is so interesting. Because at that point, Chloe's out of the story at that point. They move her out of the way so you can have this scene between them 2. And it's like, the fact for me, and just a little minor spoiler where it is, like, the fact that Rachel asks Max, what kind of, or I think, was it Max or Chloe? I can't remember. Oh, God. One of the 2 she asked. I think it might be Max. She's like, what kind of, I think it was Chloe or maybe, which is like, what kind of, no, it wasn't Chloe. Right, ignore me. It's Max, because Max is time traveling. That's Chloe from that universe. Ignore. Rachel asks Max, like, what was I like in that other universe? You're Rachel.
Yeah. And
she doesn't realize what happens to her in that fate. And it's like, when you have those kind of scenarios, it's like, oh, this is interesting. And it's like, that's why I think like the 2 character dynamic works well, and they balance it well there, they juggle it. But constantly in True Colors, sometimes it's 2 between 2 of the characters. But there's always like, this moment, there's like Ryan's just standing there, or like Steph standing there. It's like, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that. And it's like, so much has revolved around the love interest thing. I like the love interest part, but again, I moved on from it with Life is Strange 2. The love interest in that is 1 episode. In 1 episode of 2, it's like, and itself, and I kind of flip flop with this, because like, I would have loved to have seen more Lila and Sean and maybe a relationship developing there. But then at the same time, I'm like, no, I don't, because I like the story that we're seeing in Life is Strange 2, where it's not about Sean chasing after a girl or a guy or whatever. It's like, it's just 1 episode, like episode 3, where he's like, when you're in that episode in Life is Strange 2, and you're kind of just you have the love interest part. It's like, oh, you can develop a close, meaningful relationship, and we're back on the road in episode 4. And it's like, and you're like, oh yeah, this is actually cool because it's like it's not obsession about it, and then it kind of they can trickle down that part of that story that you develop that character in down the line. So it's like that's where I was like with Life is Strange, True Colors. I was like, maybe you should just kept it as a we don't have to have a kiss and kind of like buddy kind of relationship and stuff like that. It's like it seems to be like a core element of Life is Strange, and I don't think it's part of the intricate puzzle piece of what it is. I don't think it's part of what you'd consider the DNA formula because it's never been part of that. I think like I want them to explore different things. I don't want every game to have a love interest. It gets boring, especially in a choice and consequence game. They did it with like Life is Strange. They did it with Walking Dead season 4. You can have a love interest. I'm like, I don't care. It's not being built up to anything here. So I want my characters to have more meanings. Like, and you see it with like even Horizon. I've been playing those 2 games. It's like I'm glad that they haven't gone down the love interest route. I hope they don't go down the love interest route because Aloy doesn't need a love interest to be interesting. It's like, or you can play with the love interest angle, but just take away the choices where it's like, we're going to have one love interest here, we're going to do it, and it might be a very, a one of many kind of like storylines that are happening, but it's not the main storyline, and we're not necessarily going to give you the choice, or we'll give you the choice of being friends or think. I just think like there's more to it with True Colors, and that's why I was kind of like, by the time it gets to the 4th episode, the kiss happens. It's like, all right, this is expected. I was expecting them to build up to that, and it's happened and all that. But then in itself, it feels. Even Steph and Alex kissing doesn't feel right because of like the option with Ryan and Alex kissing. Cause it's like you kind of eliminate urgency. It's like there's just seems to be too many like here's choices, but none of them even have that much of an impact either way as well. Yeah.
No, I just think that there's too many characters, and I think that there's no dynamic. There's no true like anchored, like you said about Life is Strange 2. It always came down to the Diaz brothers. There's always characters around them, and there's always things to explore, but the entire central point is the Diaz brothers. You can have other characters, but no one really felt anchored to True Colors. And I think it just kind of got lost in the circle of like, well, who's the focus here? And I know it's Alex Chen in the most part, but then there's just different things you have to focus on, different red herrings and all this.
Yeah.
So,
because some of the scenes in that were great. Like, obviously, I think like one of my favorite scenes is with Alex talking to Charlotte, and Charlotte lashes out at her.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, it's like this is a cool scene. This, it's like I'm like all for that. When she gets angry, she's like full of rage. I'm like, this is like a cool interaction. It's like I wanted to see more of those. I wanted to see Diane interact with Alex more. I wanted to see Alex interact with Reginald more, like loads of kind of like, those deeper kind of like intricately cut scenes, and obviously the main focus stays on Alex, Chen, and Gabe. But then it's like there's so many different kind of things that are happening in between. I'm like, by the end of it, I was like just quite exhausted following it, and it's like the end. There's so many endings as well, and I'm like, do you really need that many endings? Can we like maybe comes across hypocritical because obviously Detroit has quite a few endings, but it's like Detroit's position to get to where you're at. That's earned because every choice has a consequence. You have so many different decisions there that actually play impact on the story in itself. That you play 3 main characters in Detroit, 2 of them can be popped off by the time you get to the end. So like in itself, like that's more meaningful. Like that's where the kind of thing is for me, where the counter argument is for those decisions you make. And I think with True Colors, as I said, like I enjoyed a lot of it. I liked a lot of the obviously the performances were great, the performance directing was great, the writing was good as well on top of that, and there's some great scenes in it. I do want to go back and play it because I think, like, personally speaking, I think my feelings might bring it down even more than what it is. I think like that's where I stand on it personally. I think like in itself, it's my 4th favorite Life is Strange game. If I'm ranking them, it's Life is Strange 1, Life is Strange 2. In itself, those 2 are changeable because I think I could make an argument that Life is Strange 2 is the best by far. And Life is Strange 2 / Captain Spirit, BTS. And BTS, I feel pretty like, heartbroken putting it down there because I love BTS as well. And then it's Life is Strange True Colors, and I'm like, it's like, I feel like, and that's the one where I feel more kind of like critical towards and kind of feel a bit, that I feel quite divided on as well. And I think in itself, like my kind of wanted to put into here as well, because of like how much time has passed with this franchise, and especially with Don't Know Deck Knight, I think this game, maybe my opinion, especially with the fandom and other things, I don't think it has the same resonance and urgency because it doesn't have the same indie aesthetic that the first Life is Strange had. And obviously, I'm talking about the way that Don't Nod does its styling, it's obviously had to go full performance capture from the way that they wanted the franchise to go. So you lose all the art direction, you lose all the style that they did from the first Life is Strange 2 that Don't Nod worked on, even BTS. It moves away from that. So it's like, you kind of like, it goes triple A. And it has this big dream to be a triple A game, but then it kind of falls flat at certain points. Like it's not as long as a triple A game. You're keeping elements from Life is Strange to kind of be part of the DNA of Life is Strange. So you bring in these chapter segments, but they're not as weighted as they should be. If you're going full price, like this is a full price triple A game that was released, then it's like compared to the $20 or $25 you paid for Life is Strange Season 1, you kind of a bit like, I'd rather just pay for the $25 at this point, because like, I got more ammunition out of those episodes. It feels like the story's like meaty at first. It's like, and it's by the time it gets 4 or 5, it's like, let's get to the finish line and speed ahead. And it's like, you know, I'm hoping that more could have happened from it. I'm not saying it has to be open world, but I felt like when we were seeing from the teasers from like Haven Springs, I was like, oh, it might be a little hub that we can explore more. It's an L Street.
Yeah, it's just L. Like that's all it is. There's no like hidden paths anywhere. It's just kind of like there's a river and then there's some shops and then that's about it. Yeah, and like I don't know. You can say a lot about that, but I don't know. That's not my biggest issue with it. It's just like the map, because it's more emphasized of like where's the choices behind it. Yeah, but at the same time, it just kind of like bummed me out. That's all I can explore. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it for me. I was just hoping for a bit more. There's something that I just like my heart was set on like something a bit more. Because as I said to you before, I readily embraced Life is Strange 2. By the time we got to it, I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, I'm so excited for this. And I got into it very quickly, because like we're moving away from Max Complete at this point. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do it with the DS Brothers. And then this one just feels like, because it's such a young franchise in itself, and you know, I don't know how long it's ever going to go on for Life is Strange, but it's such a young franchise in itself. To kind of do, as I said, the Force Awakens moment at True Colors, I'm like, really? It's like at that point, I would have
already.
I would have just personally said to Deck Nine, like, put your stamp on the studio. It's like, you know, put your stamp on this franchise. This is your franchise now. Don't Nod is not affiliated with the series anymore. We need a certain style that Deck Nine does that is transplanted on Life is Strange. You take the series a completely new routes and all this, and they did to an extent, but like really drastically change it. And as I said to you before, maybe I don't know if I said it on the podcast, I would have been like, with Square Enix, would be like, right, let's bring in another studio. We'll have 2 studios doing it, very Activision-esque with the Call of Duty franchise, very early days, but we'll do it. And we'll have one studio work on a Life is Strange game whilst the other one's getting one released. And obviously, I'm not saying every yearly release, but every like 2 years, so you have time between it, and you know which studio is working on which style it has as well. Yeah. And it feels like to kind of just go down like the Life is Strange True Colors route of like taking so many elements from the first one. I personally just find like 2 steps back, and I'm saying that this is someone who really, really, really enjoys Life is Strange 1. My expectations were set up to be a completely different experience, something that would channel the essence and the spirit of Life is Strange 1, but would be really different in itself, and would try something completely different. But then, as I said, like a lot of story beats hit the same, some of the characters hit the same beats. It was like the same with like, you know, oh my god, I can't remember what his name is now. Riley's love interest, her boyfriend. I can't remember what his name is. Like completely lost on me.
Yeah, I can't remember. Mac, yes.
Yeah, like
Machiavelli.
Machiavelli. He's just like a Nathan Prescott carbon copy in certain senses. Like not obviously down to the core, but like there's just like he's so similar to him, and you can kind of like take True Colors characters and match them up with Life is Strange 1 characters to a degree. And in itself as well, like the relationship with the Chen's siblings, family relationship with their parents. I wish that would have been earlier. There's a connotation with Life is Strange, the DNA, if we're going back to the quote unquote DNA of it, it's very much focused on the father figure of the franchise. Like there's an aspect that there's certain characters there. Is it father figure? Yeah, especially there's a father, like a deeper sense of connection with the father figure. They play a big role, like Dave Madsen, Esteban, Alex's dad. Like, you know, they have a big instrumental role in the kind of like dynamic of the series. And then other ones, like, you know, the mother is there. Oh, William Price, actually, I forgot about William Price.
Yes.
So saying
big one.
Yeah, big huge one. But then like with the female characters, like the women that are there, the mothers, like they play very different roles. Like we don't see Max's mum in the game. Then we don't.
Yeah.
We see a big role played by Joyce Price in a different kind of way. Then we see a different role played by Alex's mum in the game. Then we see like, a different role played by Karen in the game. Like there's a kind of thing. And I think like they're the kind of things that really interest me because like, as I said before, when you look at like auteur theory, you look at like and different legendary directors, especially my go-to example is Steven Spielberg. There's a reason why in Spielberg films, the father is missing. It's reflective of Steven Spielberg's upbringing. It's very much there, E.T., Jurassic Park, etc. The parents play different roles in each one. Always a central core theme of a lot of his films. Not every one of them, but a core theme in different ways. And I think that's reflective of Life is Strange. So I missed that element with True Colors. Like I really enjoyed like all the other things I was doing in True Colors, but during those kind of moments when I think back now, like Life is Strange 1, the build up to meeting William Price in like the third episode, and he appears and you see him and you're like, fucking hell, I understand why Chloe feels the way that she does. And you see the relationship he shares with Max. Then you kind of get to BTS and you have even more great moments with like William Price kind of being there constantly, kind of like in Chloe's thoughts and like what she's experiencing at that time. Then you see Life is Strange 2, you see Esteban there. He's always constantly there, constantly being the father figure for Sean, even after what happens in the first episode, he's constant there. And then also in the self-captain spirit as well, the relationship Chris shares with his dad, like, it's there. Yeah. Those kind of themes are strong. And it's like, I feel like it was kind of hunched up into the final couple of chapters of Life is Strange True Colors. Maybe my mind's going a bit blank, but I feel like it was that like last two chapters where it's like we kind of really explore more of the family, maybe more so the fifth chapter. And I kind of wanted that to be more of a constant reoccurring theme with, I feel like the Chen family should have been the central of the theme. That's my argument of it. I think like there's too much kind of like lost between it. It's kind of like becoming almost like Jim, Max and Chloe. It's like, let's do Alex and Steph and Alex and Ryan and Alex, Steph and Alex. But it should have been Gabe and Alex are the main characters, the main ones that we go to. And then on top of that, we explore the Chen family. We explore the dad. We explore the mum. We explore the kind of like who they are. So that's where I'm at.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm exhausted at this point.
Yeah, I was about to say I have nothing much more to say about it, but yeah, no, I still have a good heart for it, but but my taste in games and different types of art are different from everybody else's, and
it's also reflective of where you're at now because 2015 versus 2022, Adam, is different for like how you feel about a Life is Strange game, and that's where I'm at right now. So I feel differently about Life is Strange franchise where I did 7 years ago. So it's like I'm very much like I'm in a completely different place from it. But as I said, happy 1 year anniversary to True Colors. I think we'll move on from this because we're coming slowly climbing up to the 2 hour mark. So I think we'll do Spread the Arts here, and then we'll do the outro. So Adam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if I mentioned on this episode, but I made an EP. You should know. But no, I will say that an artist that I really like on Spotify. By the way, go play As Dusk Falls if you have an Xbox or Game Pass. Go play that. It's pretty cool. But like an artist I really like on Spotify is Jim Alexander. But it's Jim and his last name is spelled ALXDNR. So it's Jim Alexander. It's an artist thing. Don't worry about it. So it's not his real name. It's not the real way you spell it. It's just an artist name. Kind of like Scientific is SFCTNC, I believe, on Scientific. So again, Jim Alexander, ALXNDR, if I said it right, ALXNDR. You should listen to his song Fruit Salad that appeared on Ollie Ollie World. But you should also listen to, he just put out a new single called Escaping or Leaving Sinking Feeling. Leaving Sinking Feeling. It just came out yesterday as we record this. So really cool artist. You should go check him out on Spotify, Jim Alexander.
Oh, that's a very good shout. Nice recommendation from the music front. Well, I don't have anything good that I want to recommend per se, like really incredible that you need to your time. But I will recommend one of the films that I did watch this week. Was it this week? Earlier this week, I watched The Fall 2022 film. So it's like, if I'm gonna give you like a quick breakdown, it's like a 3 out of 5 film. So it's like kind of like watching your own time. It's worth watching, but it's not going to change, the wheel. But It was so let me just give you the synopsis for this because I don't want to ruin one of the points, but it's just easier. For best friends Becky and Hunter, life is all about conquering fears and pushing limits. However, after they climb 2,000 feet to the top of a remote, abandoned radio tower, they find themselves stranded with no way down. Now, with their expert climbing skills are put to the ultimate test as they desperately fight to survive the elements, a lack of supplies, and vertigo-inducing heights. So I thought it was really interesting. It's like a big, nice little thriller film. I'm someone who's terrified of heights, so it was like creeping the hell out of me when I was watching it. I was like, oh my God, my heart was sinking constantly. Very low budget. I think it's like about $3 million they made it on. So they made it very, very like thingy. It's two actors pretty much predominantly throughout the entire film. Reminds me of the days like when I always watched films like Saw and was like, this is incredible, like the low budget kind of like film that we have, like a different, like a weird scenario that we have like these two characters in. Really interestingly well shot at certain times. Story's a bit here and there. There's a couple of like, interesting moments, but as I said, it was an interesting experience nonetheless for me to watch the film. It was like I had those kind of like I'm a sucker for like low budget films and kind of like ones that put you in these kind of scenarios and like really tap into the kind of like scenario that you're in. So it's like, as I said, like Saw, you're in that room for basically most of the film and you kind of like cut down the budget. You can kind of like focus on certain things. But yeah, there's my recommendation. So that is the end of the episode. Thank you for joining us. If you are new here, please do leave subscribe, turn on notifications, like, share with comments. We're on 956 subscribers, I think, something like that. So we're slowly coming to 1,000.
Damn.
Yeah. Well, it went to 953, then it went back to 950. I was like, brilliant. But we're at 956. So yeah, please do leave some, do subscribe if you want to stay tuned with our content. It keeps you up to date when we drop things. And also StrangeCast is available on podcast services. You can watch us on there. You can also watch the video version and listen on all the other services. As I said as well, Life After Strange is out with Katy Bentz. I don't know when the next one's coming out, but it will come out at some point. But we had Katy Bentz this month, and she will hopefully appear on StrangeCast this month, so you've got something more exciting to stay tuned to. But as I said, I hope you enjoy what you listen to. Stay tuned. We will be back with more StrangeCast episodes in the future. We are going to explore the comics, by the way. I know some people have been asking about it. Adam is going to start picking up. I think we're going to probably tackle it like one volume at a time. We'll kind of go through a breakdown of them. And then also we will kind of shift gears towards the end of September and start moving away from True Colors and BTS and start looking at Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange 1, kind of mix up the vibe as well a bit more. So you'll see different things explored on here. And I think so as well with Life is Strange. I think we'll start moving into different actors and different territories. So stay tuned.
Peace.
More content to come. Until then, take care, guys. See you later.